My name is Lily. I am 12 years old. I live in a small town in the south of England. This year is different for me because I just started secondary school. Everything feels new. The building is bigger than my old primary school. The hallways are long, the ceilings are high, and there are so many classrooms. On my first day, my stomach was tight with nerves. I held my bag close as I walked through the school gates. I had never seen so many students in one place before. They stood in groups, talking, laughing, and moving quickly. I looked for a familiar face, but most people were strangers. I knew only a few from my old class, but we were not very close. I told myself to be brave. My mom had said that everyone feels nervous at first, and that soon it would get better. Still, my hands felt cold as I searched for my new classroom. When I entered, I saw 30 other students already inside. Some were sitting quietly, others were whispering or giggling. The room smelled faintly of new paint and paper. The desks were lined up in neat rows, each with a chair tucked under it. At the front of the room stood our teacher, a tall woman with dark hair tied back tightly. She looked strict, but not unkind. She told us to sit down quickly. I found an empty seat near the middle of the room and placed my bag on the floor. As the lesson began, I tried to focus, but I felt small in this sea of faces. The voices around me blended into one loud hum. Some students already seemed confident. They raised their hands, answered questions, and made jokes. I wished I could be like them, but instead, I kept quiet. My voice felt stuck in my throat. I did not want anyone to notice me. The teacher introduced herself and explained the rules of the class. She said we must always listen carefully, respect each other, and work hard. Her voice was strong, and her eyes moved around the room, making sure we were paying attention. When her eyes landed on me, I sat up straighter, hoping I looked ready to learn. I did not want to make a bad impression on the very first day. At break time, I walked into the playground with my water bottle. The air outside was cool, and I took a deep breath. Groups of students were scattered everywhere. Some played football, some leaned against the walls talking, and some sat in circles on the ground. I stood alone for a moment, then slowly walked towards a bench. I pulled out a sandwich from my bag and took a bite. I felt the eyes of others glance at me, but nobody came over. I tried not to care, though deep down, I wished someone would ask me to join them. After break, we had English class. I loved reading, so I hoped it would be my favorite subject. The teacher gave us a short story and asked us to follow along as she read aloud. I listened carefully, enjoying the words. When she asked different students to read, my heart raced. I prayed she would not call on me, but she did. My palms turned damp as I held the paper. My voice came out soft and shaky. A few students giggled. My cheeks burned hot, but I kept going until the teacher nodded for me to stop. When the bell finally rang, I felt relief. I packed my things quickly and walked to the next class. Each lesson was different, but the feeling of being new stayed the same. The corridors were noisy, the classrooms full, and my mind always alert. I wanted so badly to fit in, to be invisible, but also to belong. Days turned into weeks, and slowly I began to know the routine. I woke up early, put on my uniform, ate a quick breakfast, and walked to school. Each morning, my mom said goodbye at the door and reminded me that she was proud of me. That gave me a little courage. At school, I started to recognize faces. Some smiled at me, and I smiled back. I was not best friends with anyone yet, but I was beginning to feel less like a stranger. In science class, I sat next to a girl named Mia. She had long brown hair and freckles on her nose. She was friendly and whispered little jokes when the teacher turned away. She made me laugh, and I liked sitting beside her. Sometimes we worked together on small experiments, and she explained things I did not understand. I was grateful for her kindness. In maths, the teacher was strict and always moved quickly through problems. I struggled to keep up, but I tried hard. One afternoon, I got an answer wrong, and a boy across the room laughed loudly. My stomach twisted, but I pretended not to hear. Later, Mia told me not to worry. She said everyone makes mistakes. Her words helped me, even if I still felt embarrassed. Lunch was always loud and crowded. I carried my tray carefully through the hall, afraid of spilling food. I usually sat at the end of a table, not too close to the center. From there, I could watch everyone else, without being in the middle of attention. Sometimes I listened to the conversations around me, learning the names of people in my year. The more I listened, the more I understood the rhythm of school life. One afternoon, during history, the teacher asked us to write about something important from the past. As I bent over my paper, I felt a sudden sharp cramp in my stomach. It surprised me, but I tried to ignore it. I shifted in my seat, hoping it would pass. The clock on the wall ticked slowly, each minute dragging. I told myself it was nothing, just nerves. Still, a small fear grew inside me. Something did not feel right. At the end of the day, I walked home with heavy steps. My bag dug into my shoulder, and the sky was cloudy above. When I reached home, I dropped the bag in the hallway and sank into a chair. My mom asked how my day was, and I said it was fine. But inside, I felt unsettled. Something about that cramp stayed with me. I could not explain it, and I pushed the thought away. The next morning, I woke up early again. I dressed in my uniform and brushed my hair quickly. I checked my bag, making sure I had all my books. I left the house, the air cool against my cheeks. The walk to school felt longer than usual. My thoughts wandered. I wondered if I would be called to read again, or if someone would laugh at me. I hoped the day would be calm. When I entered the classroom, I took my seat quietly. The teacher began the lesson, her voice filling the room. I opened my book and tried to follow along. Around me, students whispered and scribbled. Everything looked normal, but my stomach tightened again. I pressed my hand gently against it, under the desk. Nobody noticed. I told myself to keep still and wait for the lesson to end. That day, I moved from class to class like always, but something inside me was different. I felt nervous, more than usual. I kept glancing at the clock, waiting for breaks, waiting for the day to finish. I wanted to go home, to be safe. But the hours stretched on. The noise of the classroom, the scratch of pens, the shuffle of feet on the floor all seemed louder than before. By the end of the week, I was tired. My head felt heavy, and my body uneasy. I was still the new girl, still finding my place. The classroom of 30 students felt both exciting and overwhelming. I tried to smile, I tried to keep up, but something deeper was building. I did not know it yet, but the most embarrassing day of my school life was just around the corner. The day began like any other. I walked into the classroom with my bag pulled tight on my shoulder. The chatter of 30 students filled the air. I sat down in my usual seat, hoping to go unnoticed. The teacher entered and asked us to open our books. My stomach gave a small twist, the same uneasy feeling I had felt before. I shifted in my chair, willing it to go away. The lesson started, and the room grew quieter, except for the teacher's voice. I tried to concentrate on the words, but the cramp in my stomach grew stronger. I swallowed hard and pressed my knees together. Something inside me whispered that something was wrong. I wanted to raise my hand and ask if I could leave for the toilet, but the teacher was already explaining an important exercise. She did not like interruptions. Minutes passed slowly. My palms grew damp. I felt heat rising to my face. I tried to focus on the page in front of me, but the words blurred. The pain sharpened, and I knew I needed to leave. I lifted my hand carefully. The teacher glanced at me and frowned. "Yes, Lily, what is it?" she asked. "Please, may I go to the toilet?" I whispered. My voice shook. The teacher's face tightened. "Not now. We are in the middle of reading. You must wait until the lesson is finished." My stomach dropped. I nodded quickly and lowered my hand. My classmates glanced at me. Some smirked, others turned away. I stared at my desk, wishing I could vanish. The pain came again, stronger this time. I pressed my thighs together, holding still, praying I could last until the bell. The minutes dragged. Each second felt like an hour. My heart pounded. I could hear the rustle of papers and the squeak of pens, but my mind was fixed on the rising panic inside me. I felt a warm sensation, slow at first, then heavier. My breath caught in my throat. I knew what it was. I froze. I sat as still as stone, afraid to move. My face burned red. Tears stung my eyes. I wanted to run, but the teacher kept speaking at the front of the room, her back half turned. My classmates laughed quietly at something unrelated, but I felt as if the laughter was about me. When the bell finally rang, the teacher called for us to pack away our books. The sound of chairs scraping against the floor filled the air. I stood up slowly, hoping I could leave before anyone noticed. But as I pushed my chair back, I felt the wetness spread further. I glanced down. There it was, red on my skirt. My heart stopped. A gasp came from the girl behind me. "Lily, your skirt," she whispered. Her eyes were wide with shock. My legs shook. I wanted to sit down again, to hide, but it was too late. The teacher turned. "What is going on?" she asked firmly. "I need to go," I said quickly, my voice breaking. The teacher narrowed her eyes. "Class is not dismissed yet. Wait a moment." My chest tightened. I shook my head. "Please, I have to go." But she waved her hand sharply. "Stay until I finish the instructions." By then, several students had already noticed. Whispers ran through the room like wildfire. A boy pointed and muttered something. Another laughed nervously. I heard the words pass from desk to desk. Red. Blood. Skirt. Lily. My body froze in shame. I wanted to scream, to disappear, to sink into the floor. Finally, the teacher dismissed the class. I rushed for the door, clutching my bag against me, but the whispers followed. Eyes followed. Some full of curiosity, some of confusion, some of cruelty. As I hurried down the corridor, I heard the words echo. "She is bleeding. Did you see it? What happened to her?" My steps grew faster, but the sound chased me. My chest rose and fell with panic. Tears blurred my vision. I turned a corner, searching for the toilet. My legs trembled. When I pushed open the door and locked myself inside a stall, I leaned against the wall and covered my face with both hands. I looked down at myself. The sight made my stomach twist. My skirt was stained. The red mark was too clear, too impossible to hide. My cheeks burned hotter than ever. I had never felt so humiliated in my life. Outside, I could still hear faint voices of other girls coming in and out. Some whispered, "Is she all right? Did you see her skirt?" Others giggled nervously. They did not understand. They did not know what was happening. I was too young to explain it to them. I sat on the cold toilet seat, shaking. My hands clutched my legs tightly. I wanted to call my mom. I wanted someone to come and rescue me. But my phone was in my bag, and my voice would not come out. All I could do was sit there, waiting, hoping the noise outside would fade. After what felt like forever, a teacher came into the toilet. She knocked gently on the stall door. "Lily, are you in there?" It was the voice of the head of year, a woman with kind eyes who sometimes checked on us in class. "Yes," I whispered, my voice cracked. "Can you open the door?" she asked softly. My hands shook as I pulled the lock and opened the door. She looked at me with concern, then quickly handed me her cardigan. "Here, wrap this around your waist. Come with me." I nodded, tears streaming down my face. I tied the cardigan around myself, hiding as much as I could. She led me out of the toilets and down the hall. I kept my head down, but I still felt the eyes of passing students. I heard more whispers. "It is her. That is the girl." We walked into the staff room. She closed the door gently and guided me to a chair. "It is all right, Lily," she said quietly. "You are safe here." She poured me a glass of water and placed it in front of me. My hands shook as I lifted it, sipping slowly. My heart still raced. The humiliation pressed heavy on my chest. I imagined the whole school already knew. The whispers, the stares, the giggles. They would never forget. I buried my face in my hands and sobbed. The teacher placed a hand on my shoulder. "You are not alone, Lily. This happens to many girls. It is nothing to be ashamed of." Her voice was gentle, but the words barely reached me. All I could think of was the look on the faces of my classmates, the way the news had spread like fire. Minutes passed as I cried quietly, the cardigan still tied around me. I could hear the muffled sound of lessons continuing in other classrooms. The world outside moved on, but mine felt frozen in this moment of shame. I wished I could run home, lock the door, and never return. The teacher finally said, "We will call your parents. They will come and bring you a change of clothes. Do not worry, Lily. We will take care of this." I nodded weakly, unable to find words. My throat was tight, my eyes sore from tears. The weight of the day pressed down on me. I knew nothing would be the same again. My classmates had seen, the whispers had spread, and my secret had been revealed in the cruelest way. That afternoon became the longest of my life. I sat in the staff room with the cardigan wrapped around me. The glass of water in my hand had gone warm, but I kept holding it because it gave me something to focus on. My tears had slowed, but my face still felt hot, my eyes sore and swollen. The head of year sat across from me, her voice calm, her tone soft. She spoke about how this was natural, how every girl goes through it at some point, and how it was nothing to feel ashamed of. I nodded because I wanted to believe her, but inside my chest I felt the opposite. I felt ruined, as if my school life had ended before it had even begun. After some time, she said she needed to speak with the head teacher. She left the room for a few minutes, and I sat in silence, staring at the clock on the wall. The hands moved slowly, each tick echoing louder than the last. I wanted my mom to arrive, to hug me, to take me away. The door opened again, and this time, the head teacher walked in. He was a tall man with a serious expression, though he softened when he looked at me. "Lily," he said gently, "you are safe here. We have already called your family. Your mother is on her way." I nodded, but my lips trembled. I felt the tears threaten to return. "I know this feels overwhelming," he continued, "but please understand, you have done nothing wrong. This is a part of life, and it does not make you less. It makes you human." His words were kind, but the thought that everyone in school had seen me filled me with dread. The whispering faces, the curious stares, the cruel laughter from some. They were etched in my mind like scars. The head of year spoke softly to him, and I caught pieces of the conversation. She said that the incident had already spread. She said the students were talking about it in corridors, and some older students had even asked questions about me. My stomach tightened. I buried my face in my hands again. The shame was too heavy. The head teacher walked closer and crouched beside me so he was at eye level. "Lily, this will pass. People talk today, but tomorrow their minds will move to something else. What matters is that you take care of yourself and that you know we will support you. Do you hear me?" I nodded again, but I could not answer. My voice was gone. When my mom finally arrived, I could not hold back anymore. The moment I saw her, I rushed forward and buried my face in her chest. She wrapped her arms around me tightly, her warmth calming me. "It is all right, sweetheart," she whispered. "You are all right now." The teachers stepped aside to give us space. My mom spoke with them quietly, but I only caught fragments. Words like embarrassing, support, and counseling floated in the air. My ears buzzed, and I felt too tired to listen. My mom helped me into the toilet with a change of clothes she had brought. I slipped into the new skirt and clean tights, folding the ruined ones deep inside a plastic bag. When I looked at my reflection in the mirror, my face was pale, my eyes red. I hardly recognized myself. We returned to the staff room, and the head teacher explained gently to my mom that the school would address the incident. He said it was important to create understanding among the students so that I would not feel isolated. He wanted to talk with my class about respect and empathy. My mom agreed, though I felt a deep fear inside. The thought of my class discussing me, discussing what had happened, made my stomach twist again. When the school day ended, I walked out of the building beside my mom. I kept my head down the entire way, avoiding every glance, every voice. The whispers still followed me in the corridors. "That is her. The girl from class. The one with the skirt." My ears burned, but I walked faster. At home that evening, I sat in my room with the curtains closed. My mom knocked softly and came in with a mug of tea. She sat beside me on the bed. "Lily," she said, "you are not alone in this. Every girl goes through it. You just had it happen in a difficult way, but it does not define you." Tears filled my eyes again. "Everyone saw, Mum. Everyone will always remember." She shook her head firmly. "People forget, sweetheart. Right now it feels like the end of the world, but time will heal this. What matters is that you are brave enough to face it." I wanted to believe her, but the memory of the classroom was still sharp. The laughter, the whispers, the look of confusion on the faces of students who did not yet understand what it meant. The next day, I did not want to go back to school. My stomach ached at the thought of walking through the gates again. My mom held my hand and reminded me that hiding would only make it harder. She promised to walk with me to the entrance, and she did. I felt like every eye was on me as I stepped inside. In class, the teacher began by addressing the whole room. Her voice was calm but firm. She spoke about respect, kindness, and understanding. She said that sometimes things happen in life that people do not understand, but that mocking or gossiping is never acceptable. She did not mention my name, but I knew everyone knew. The air in the room felt heavy. Some students glanced at me quickly, then looked away. Others shuffled in their seats, guilty perhaps, or simply unsure what to do. I sat quietly, wishing I could melt into the chair. The words of the teacher were meant to protect me, but they also reminded everyone of what had happened. My hands trembled under the desk. I kept my eyes on the page, though the letters swam before me. At lunch, I carried my tray as usual, but the room felt different. Conversations hushed as I passed. Some eyes lingered too long. I sat at the edge of a table, staring at my food without appetite. My heart pounded. I wanted to disappear. That afternoon, the head teacher called me to his office. My mom was already there, waiting. He explained that they wanted to arrange a meeting with me, my parents, and my class teacher to make sure I felt supported. I sat in silence while they spoke. My mom held my hand, squeezing gently, as if to remind me I was not alone. They asked me how I felt. I could barely find the words. I muttered that I felt ashamed, that I did not want to return to school. My voice shook with each word. The head teacher listened carefully and assured me that steps would be taken to help me. He promised that teachers would watch more closely for any unkind behavior, and that I would have someone to speak to if I felt upset. As we left his office, my mom knelt down and looked into my eyes. "You are strong, Lily," she said softly. "You will get through this. I know it feels impossible now, but you will see that you are not alone." That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. My thoughts chased each other in circles. I replayed every moment in class, every whisper, every stare. My chest tightened with fear of what the next day would bring. Yet, beneath the fear, a small spark of hope flickered. My mom's words echoed in my mind. Maybe, just maybe, I would not have to face it all alone. The next morning, I walked into school with heavy steps. My stomach felt tight, and my hands were clammy against the straps of my bag. I was terrified of more whispers, of more stares. But as I entered the classroom, something felt different. The room was quieter than usual, and the eyes on me seemed softer, less sharp. I slid into my seat, bracing myself for laughter or cruel comments, but none came. When the lesson began, the teacher looked around the class and spoke again about respect and kindness. She reminded everyone that being a good student was not just about grades, but about how we treated each other. Her voice carried a weight that made even the loudest boys sit quietly. I felt a small sense of relief, though my heart still beat quickly in my chest. At break time, I tried to walk outside alone, hoping to hide in a quiet corner of the playground. But, as I stepped into the corridor, a girl from year 11 approached me. She was taller than me, confident in her steps. She had blonde hair tied neatly back, and she smiled kindly. "Hi, you are Lily, right?" she asked. I nodded nervously. "My name is Sophie," she said. "I heard what happened. I just want you to know that it is nothing to be ashamed of. Every girl goes through it. You just had it happen at a tough time." Her calm voice and gentle smile made something loosen inside me. For the first time since that awful day, I did not feel completely alone. Another girl from year 11 joined us. She nodded in agreement. "It happened to me in year 8, she admitted softly. "I thought my world had ended, but it got better. It always does." Their words sank into me like warm sunlight after days of rain. I managed a small smile. "Thank you," I whispered. Over the next few days, the support grew. During lunch one afternoon, a group of girls from my own class came to sit beside me. One of them, Mia, the girl I had spoken with in science, looked at me with kind eyes. "We are sorry, Lily," she said. "We did not understand, but we do now. You do not need to sit alone anymore." Her words touched my heart. The other girls nodded in agreement. One of them even offered me part of her sandwich, as if to show that I was welcome. I felt tears prick my eyes, but this time they were not only from sadness. They were from relief. Slowly, my days began to change. The whispers faded. The stares softened. Students who had once looked at me with curiosity now looked at me with understanding. Some of the older girls even pulled me aside to share their own stories. Each time I heard another voice say, "It happened to me too," I felt lighter. I was not broken. I was not strange. I was simply part of the journey that every girl faces. The head teacher also kept his promise. Teachers paid close attention during lessons, making sure no cruel jokes were made. In assemblies, they spoke about respect, about growing up, and about supporting each other. Though my name was never said, I knew the words were for me, and also for every student who might one day feel as I did. One afternoon, as I packed my books away, Mia leaned over and whispered, "You are brave, Lily. I do not think I could have handled it like you." Her words made my throat tighten. I wanted to tell her that I had not felt brave at all, that I had felt broken and weak. But maybe, in facing it, in still coming to school each day, I had shown a kind of bravery I did not yet see in myself. Weeks passed, and the sharp sting of that day dulled. The memory was still there, but it no longer controlled me. I learned how to carry pads in my bag quietly, just in case. I learned that teachers would listen if I asked firmly to leave the room. Most of all, I learned that I had friends, real friends, who stood beside me. One bright morning, as I walked into school, the Year 11 girls who had first spoken to me waved from across the yard. I waved back, smiling. Their kindness had given me strength, and now I wanted to pass that same strength to others. I told myself that if I ever saw another girl struggling or embarrassed, I would be the first to reach out. I would not let anyone feel as alone as I had felt. In English class that week, the teacher asked for volunteers to read aloud. My heart jumped, but this time I raised my hand slowly. When she called on me, my voice trembled at first, but then it grew steadier. The class listened quietly. No one laughed. When I finished, the teacher smiled and nodded. My cheeks warmed, but this time with pride, not shame. That evening at home, I sat with my mom at the kitchen table. The smell of dinner filled the room. She asked me how my day was. I smiled softly and said, "It was better. It is really getting better." She reached over and squeezed my hand. "See, sweetheart, I told you time would heal. You are stronger than you think." I believed her now. I had walked through fire and come out standing. My classmates had seen me at my lowest, and yet I was still here. I was not invisible anymore, but I was not ashamed either. By the end of the term, life at school felt normal again. I laughed with Mia in science. I shared lunch with the other girls. I even joined in during group projects without fear of being judged. The memory of the most embarrassing day of my life would always be there, but it no longer defined me. Instead, it became a reminder of how far I had come. One afternoon, as I left school, I passed a younger girl, standing alone by the gates. She looked nervous, clutching her bag tightly. I recognized the fear in her eyes, the same fear I had carried when I first walked through those gates. I smiled at her and said hello. Her shoulders relaxed a little, and she smiled back. In that moment, I understood something important. What had once been the worst day of my life had turned into something different. It had shown me strength I did not know I had. It had given me empathy for others who struggled. It had taught me that even when you feel alone, there are always people willing to stand beside you if you let them. As I walked home, the sun setting in the distance, I felt lighter. I was no longer the girl who wanted to disappear. I was Lily, a 12-year-old who had faced something hard and come through stronger. The most embarrassing day of my life had not broken me. It had shaped me, and though I would never forget it, I could now hold my head high, knowing that it was only one part of my story, not the whole of it.